To really understand a philosophical text, we need to read it in a way that makes it come to life. Here is a passage of Bergson's 1911 article, "The Soul in the Body," translated and read in a way that promotes the continuous growth of insight. Take note that real, concrete, living thought is something psychologists have so far spoken to us very little about, since it presents a challenging hold for internal observation. What's usually studied under the name is less thought itself than the artificial imitation obtained by an ensemble composed of images and ideas. But with images and even with ideas, you will not reconstruct thought any more than you can make movement with positions. The idea is a halt in thought. It's born when thought, instead of continuing its path, makes a pause or returns on itself, just as heat arises in the bullet that encounters an obstacle. But, just as heat did not pre-exist in the bullet, the idea was not an integral part of the thought. So try, for example, to string together the ideas of heat, production, bullet, and interpose the ideas of interiority and reflection involved in the words within and itself. Reconstruct the thought I have just expressed by this phrase, "Heat is produced within the bullet." You will see that it is impossible, that the thought was an indivisible movement, and that the idea corresponding to each of the words are simply the representations that would arise in the mind at each moment in the motion of thought if the thought had halted. But it doesn't halt. Set aside then the artificial reconstructions of thought. Consider thought itself. You will find in it less states than directions, and you will see that it is essentially a continual and continuous change of interior direction, which tends unceasingly to translate itself into changes of external direction. I mean to say that actions and gestures capable of sketching in space and expressing metaphorically in some way the coming and goings of the mind. From the moment sketched or even simply prepared, we do not perceive it most often because we have no interest in knowing it. But we are indeed forced to notice it when we closely press our thought to seize it all alive and pass it still alive into the soul of another. Even if the words have been chosen as they should be, they will not say what we want them to say if the rhythm, the punctuation, and the whole choreography of the discourse is not helping to make the reader, guided then by a series of nascent movements, to describe a curve of thought and feeling analogous to the one we describe ourselves. All of the art of writing is here. It's something like the art of the musician. But do not imagine that the music involved here simply addresses the ear, as is commonly imagined. A foreign ear, however accustomed it may be to the music, will not differentiate between the French prose we find musical and that which is not, between what is precisely written in French and what is only so approximately. Clear proof that it concerns something quite other than a material harmony of sounds. In reality, the art of writing consists wholly in making us forget that it's employing words. The harmony he seeks is a certain correspondence between the comings and goings of his mind and those of his discourse, corresponding so perfectly that, carried by the phrase, the undulations of his thought communicate themselves to us, and each of the words, taken individually, no longer counts. There's nothing but the moving sense that traverses the words, nothing but two minds that seem to vibrate directly, without intermediary, in unison with one another. The rhythm of speech has no other purpose than to reproduce the rhythm of thought. And what can the rhythm of thought be but those nascent movements, barely conscious, that accompany it?